In a matter of minutes, calm turns to chaos. A wall of wind, golf ball-sized hail, a tornado touches down. Severe weather doesn't wait, and neither can you. We're taking you inside the science, the warnings, the life-saving steps that could protect you and your family when the next storm system strikes. Because when it comes to severe weather coverage here at WQAD, being informed isn't just helpful, it can save lives. Welcome everyone to our Weather Impact Alert Severe Weather Special right here on the WQAD 8+ app. I'm Chief Meteorologist James Zahara. Severe weather can strike with little warning, turning an ordinary day into a dangerous one in just minutes. Every year, powerful storms bring destructive winds, large hail, flash flooding, and tornadoes that threaten lives and property across our area. We're taking time to focus on something that can make all the difference when storms develop: preparation and awareness, knowing the risk, understanding the warning signs, and having a plan before severe weather hits can actually help keep you and your family safe. In this special, we'll look at how certain severe weather hazards actually do form. Also, Peter Warner will discuss the newest form in severe weather outlooks called SIG. It just came out. This brings better quality when it comes to you. We'll address the levels when it comes to issuing weather impact alerts and the steps you can take from days before the event to the threat quickly approaching that day. We'll also focus on increasing concerns with meteorologist Andrew Stuskey when it comes to storm anxiety, and not just with pets, but with humans as well. And then Morgan Strackbine will talk about the latest discrepancy on sirens and why it's still being questioned even today. She'll even be giving us a nice behind-the-scenes look at our storm-chasing vehicle called the Beast and why it can provide the kind of first-hand insight that radar alone can't always capture. We'll then end our special with a fireside chat, including a chance for you to win a free self-propelled gas Toro lawnmower, courtesy of our friends at B&B Lawn and Equipment in Geneseo, Illinois. But first, let's talk about the counties that are in our viewing area. There are close to 20 counties that we focus on across eastern Iowa and northwestern Illinois. And for this severe weather season, it's no different than other seasons. We got some facts for you when it comes to severe weather. The first fact is that at least every county will experience a severe thunderstorm warning in these close to 20 counties. Fact number two is that over half of these counties will experience a tornado warning. And fact number three, half of that group damage is going to be reported. Now, how do we get severe weather around here? Well, we need certain ingredients that go on. The first is available water. The amount of water available in a column of atmosphere if it were to all fall to the ground. So that's a big key there too. Storm energy. Once in a while during our coverage, we bring this up. High levels of storm energy actually provide more rapid growth when it comes to storms. Dew point, the number one indicator when it comes to the amount of moisture in the air. 55 degrees or higher, that is needed for storms to become severe. And then finally, temperatures. That's a great element. Warmer the temperature, the more heat energy storms can use to produce hail, wind, and severe weather. Now, when we see these ingredients so early in our preparations, then we will give you an initial heads up with a weather impact alert. As we get closer and closer to the event itself, then we not only start keeping a watch on what's going to be going on in the atmosphere, but we're at the same time at a point where we're planning and preparing. For you, it will be eventually that day when we need to take action when it comes to severe weather heading into your hometown. So this will eventually be a time where you need to prepare and eventually act quickly, making sure that you get to your safe place. How far in advance do people actually hear about our severe weather threat? Well, the good news here, it has been improving nicely. Several days in advance, about 33% of people get that threat well in advance, days in advance. About 50% actually get the threat the day before the actual event, and then that percentage gets lower and lower still. More importantly, we're seeing a majority of those viewers actually wanting to know about that event before the actual event takes place. Now, here at News 8, we have two labels that we show. Days before the event, or actually before the date of the event, we show out a weather impact alert in the color of blue, okay? And then when we are at the day of the event, we change our weather impact alert to red. That is the day when we do expect some, most, or the entire viewing area under some type of impact when it comes to severe weather. Now, of course, there are a lot of these severe weather hazards that we have out and about. And one of the most common questions we get, young and old, is, well, how does a tornado actually form? Well, it has to do certainly with the winds, the change in wind speed and direction with height. This is what we call wind shear. We have the lighter surface winds combined with those stronger upper level winds that produces what we call a slinky of air, or a rotating column of air that we don't actually see. However, though, when we start interacting this rotating column of air with a thunderstorm updraft, it takes that column of air and turns it into the vertical, creating this mesocyclone vortex within the storm itself. The base of that mesocyclone vortex is what is usually called the wall cloud. And that is usually a place where you actually see this rotating column of air making its way possibly downward to a point where halfway through it to the ground, it's a funnel cloud. When it actually does touch the ground, that is considered and clarified as a tornado. Now, we can actually see that formation take place even on our Doppler radar itself. This is what we call our wind velocity mode. This measures raindrops moving toward and away from the radar itself. When the raindrops are moving away from the radar, it comes across in the form of red. When we see the color in the green, that's indicating that those raindrops are moving toward the radar. Eventually, when we see these colors kind of interact and turn, that's where we are expecting to see some type of circulation take place, possibly and very likely in the form of a tornado. And this gives us an opportunity to see if there actually is one with the help of our chasers, and that's something we'll talk about a little bit later in just a minute. When it comes to lightning, another major weather killer out there, and that certainly happens in exposed areas like being underneath a tree, going fishing in the water, or just being in the yard itself. Those are the most common times where people unfortunately get struck by lightning, and in many cases, it could be quite fatal as well. What makes lightning so dangerous, folks, with all this great technology that we have today, we have nothing to tell us where the lightning bolt will strike. That's why lightning is one of the top weather killers that are out there even today. Also, one of the top weather killers that are out there today, flash flooding. The most deadly but preventable. Roads become impassable with fast water. Bridges get washed out. The best advice that we always tell people is turn around, don't drown. Take a look at this. 6 inches of fast-moving water can actually knock you off your feet. A good foot of fast-moving water can actually carry away a car. And if you're about 1.5 feet to even 2 feet, well, guess what? Even things like a large SUV, vans, trucks, those too can get carried away as well. So water is a very, very powerful element that is usually noticed when it comes to flash flooding. What about hail? We've certainly seen our fair share of thunderstorms that create hail. And it all has to do with the updraft, producing additional layers on the hailstone itself. The more times it recycles itself within the cloud, the larger and larger that storm can become, to a point where the weight of the hail, I should say, begins to make its way down to the ground and eventually could potentially cause damage. Now, most common kind of hail that we see, pea size and marble size. But when we get to about quarter size or larger, that's when we issue, in this case, maybe a severe thunderstorm warning. When we're dealing with that type of size, that can certainly cause damage. And as what we recently saw early this spring over in Kankakee, Illinois, we actually had hail the size of grapefruits, even larger. And that can happen when you're dealing with the strength of these updrafts. This is a great graphic that explains that. So the stronger the updraft, the chance for these hailstones to get larger and larger and larger still. When we talk about updrafts around 64 miles an hour, it can actually become the size of a golf ball. But as we mentioned about grapefruit size, the updraft needs to be as strong as 100 miles an hour. So it allows that hailstone to grow to a point where it's so heavy, it eventually makes its way down to the ground. So that is how hail sizes are formed, courtesy of the strength of these updrafts. When severe storms develop, meteorologists watch more than just the radar. Behind the scenes, forecasters are analyzing the atmosphere in ways that help them understand not if storms will form, but how dangerous they could become. Peter Warner takes a closer look at how the SIG system, that is the conditional intensity group, works and how it's helping meteorologists better anticipate the strength of these severe storms before they actually strike.
Severe weather season is around the corner, and now's the time to start thinking about that.
Soon that radar will be tracking some severe storms, and there's new classifications of intensity by the National Weather Service, what they call conditional intensity groups.
Add that value to not only what the coverage of severe weather is expected to be, what the timing of severe weather is expected to be, but also the intensity potential.
Storm intensity hasn't always been clearly classified before, especially on days with isolated to scattered chances.
We may have what we call a marginal or slight risk, but if it happens, the intensity level can be quite high. So that has always been a challenge in the past.
Previously, Storm Track 8 used the hatch marks on severe days to convey an elevated risk. Now, we will use a separate graphic to help you understand where the elevated intensity will be. These changes don't come out of the blue.
The National Weather Service as a whole has been doing operational research and testing of honing severe weather threats in space, time, and intensity.
But it is a new change and comes with some advice.
With these new threat outlooks, it's always important for people to kind of step back and ask themselves, what's the weather going to be today? Do I need to be concerned?
And while we aren't tracking severe storms right now, the ultimate goal with these conditional intensity groups is to better help public understanding of the threat.
We're going to break that down, make that as bite-sized and easily consumable, easily shareable to your friends and family.
Now, when it comes to us presenting these new SIGs, we're going to break them out in separate graphics other than the traditional categorical groups that you see, like the 2 out of 5 risks that you see here. This is what you're used to, right? And sometimes we'd see the hatches on it. Well, this time, we're going to separate the two so we don't have too much going on one graphic. I know it can be confusing, so that's why we're going to break it out to help better explain it to you here as well, because I know sometimes these types of changes can be very confusing here at first. So this is the typical categorical outlook that we're used to, a 2 out of 5 threat along and south of Interstate 80. Here in this scenario. Now, when we break it out into SIGs, we're going to do it for each individual group. We got tornado, wind, and hail. First, let's kind of break down the tornado. What we will normally see is really no significant risk, and that's going to be the EF0 to EF1. You're not really going to see a whole lot going on there. That's just your typical tornado threat. When you see the SIGs, though, that's when you start to see that EF2, EF3, and potentially EF4+. Now, these EF4+, those are going to be rare. I mean, very rare. We're only going to talk about them if it's a potential historic tornado outbreak or historic strength potential of tornadoes. What you're seeing here is just what we would see on a high day risk or a high risk day when it comes to tornadoes, where we'd see the potential for EF2s here in the lighter red, say from Clinton to Muscatine to Mount Pleasant, but in the darker red in Kewaunee, Princeton, out towards Knox County and maybe Henderson County as well, that's where you see that potential for EF3 risks. Okay, so this is, again, just a scenario. This isn't an actual real situation that's going on, but it puts into perspective what we're going to be looking at. I think it's very, very rare that we see an EF 4+ ranking or SIG level here, conditional intensity group level throughout the area. This is where it's going to get interesting, though. This is when we get towards your wind. And this is honestly one of the newest and kind of most interesting developments here with the conditional intensity groups. It's the type of storms that produce the conditional intensity group of 1, 2, or 3, or 75, 85, or 95 plus. What you're seeing in that lighter blue there, that's 75+ mile per hour winds that you can get in any storm type, right? Supercells versus just, your typical straight line wind event. But this is where it gets interesting. Once we get to the 85 to 95+ mile per hour mark here, and that 85+ mile per hour mark in that navyish blue, that's where we have bow echoes or derecho possible tags, okay? And this is derecho possible tags that we're gonna start seeing on conditional intensity groups at that level 2 out of 3 threat for wind. Okay, so that's conditional intensity groups 2, potential for maybe a derecho. That's what they're going to talk about. Then, when we get to the level 3, which is 95+ mile per hour winds, that's when they're going to give it the conditional intensity group during an ongoing derecho event where they can upgrade it to a class 3 or conditional intensity group 3 for a high-end historic derecho. Okay, that's something we're likely not going to see a lot here either. These 3s, not going to be very likely, but that's something to keep in mind here is if we get that 3, that means there's a high-end derecho going on and moving towards our viewing area. Something to keep in mind when it comes to the winds here. And then the last one is your hail. And this one's a little bit different. There's only 2 conditional intensity groups. Your typical severe thunderstorm, what you're seeing in the lightest purple there, you're not going to see a conditional intensity group. That's just for quarter size hail, inch plus hail, really what we typically see with hail in a typical severe warning. Now, the elevated risks or the elevated threats are the egg and the softball size. Now, egg is going to be the darker purple. That's how we're going to portray it to you. An egg size hail, yeah, that could be damaging. That's going to dent your cars. Once you get to that softball size hail, that's where you really see the impacts on roofs, barns. That's where we're going to be seeing the biggest impact. But again, there's only 2 conditional intensity groups here for hail, while tornadoes and wind have the 3. We'll make sure to break these all down and explain them to you as we continue through this new severe season, but this is just the latest on how we're going to show you them and help you stay weather aware with all these new confusing upgrades.
When severe weather threatens, every second matters, and so does every tool used to track storms. For us, one of the most important tools on the road isn't just radar or satellite imagery. It's our storm-chasing vehicle called the Beast. This vehicle becomes a mobile weather station, helping our team verify storm reports, track dangerous conditions, and provide the kind of first-hand insight that radar alone, can't always capture. Meteorologist Morgan Strackbine, our veteran chaser, has more.
All right, one of the most probably iconic aspects of anything here at WQAD, especially when it comes to the weather department, is the Beast, which is our storm chasing vehicle. Of course, we're lucky because we're the only local TV station that has something like this. Obviously, we take it out chasing. We'll take it out for road coverage during any winter storms. Obviously, it's a hot topic for any school visits or any touch-a-truck events, but of course not everyone gets the chance to be able to see the truck up close and personal, so we're going to give you a little tour and a little bit of a behind-the-scenes look of what it looks like when we're chasing, as well with what the equipment that we have here.
So again, that's the live look there in Alexis from the Beast.
A little bit about the Beast. The Beast is a Ford F-250 from around 2017, so we've had it for about 10 years. Obviously, this wouldn't be possible without our friends from Rock River Electric, so we absolutely thank them for being able to get us this vehicle. But yeah, we've had it for about almost close to 10 years. Doesn't get too much mileage though. It only has about 27,500 miles on it, but still gets a lot of traction around the Quad Cities. So the first thing is you'll notice that we do not have a front passenger seat. It has been completely replaced with a system here, and this system basically houses all the electronics for the equipment that we have. We have cameras, lights, right here actually is something new that we have added. This is a Starlink, so that we are actually able to get Wi-Fi out on the road, which is super helpful for me because when I'm tracking, I use laptop, my phone for both getting in contact with the station, getting in contact with the National Weather Service and being able to get updates from them, as well as being able to see radar and other maps that I need to be able to keep us and the beast safe when we're out on chases.
Morgan has been in this situation before.
So normally I would be the reporter or the storm chaser that is back here during our chases. Of course, we always have 2 people because I will never go alone. 1. 2, we will have somebody who is driving while I am back here and running our operating system here to control the cameras so I can show people what I am seeing, as well as being able to see me from the cabin of the beast as well.
This is some of the most impressive imagery and video that I have seen come in from the beast.
One of the most important aspects is we have a 360 camera that is on top of the truck. I can go all the way around, I can go up, I can go down, we can zoom in and out. It's probably the most important tool that we have on the beast itself.
I want to go back to Alexis, and that's where meteorologist Morgan Strackbine has been doing the chasing in the beast itself.
So yes, back here in the what we call belly of the beast, you could say, I'm back here with our operating system. I can see both cameras, the rooftop and this camera right here, which is pointing at me. Luckily, technology has gotten so advanced that all we need is this little backpack. I plug it into the system here.
We're literally right behind the storms.
We immediately start feeding back to the station so they can see both that rooftop camera. I can also switch it to be the camera that is on the inside of the beast. We have all these little fancy buttons and tools, but really it's just a lot simpler than that. We've got the microphone, we've got the camera operating, and then of course my interface to be able to see all of our cameras, as well as a light here in case it ever gets a little too dark for the camera to see.
But there's only so much that we can see on the radar. That's why we go to the beast.
Everyone is always very interested in what's behind the back of the beast. I wish we had our own Dorothy like from Twister. We don't. Instead, it's mainly used for a lot of storage purposes because we do take the vehicle to a lot of events. But the most important aspect to the back is the system that you see in the back right corner. That is actually an extra battery, and that battery will allow us to be able to power the camera operating system in there without the beast running, because it's a lot of power draw, can't really work as well with just running off the beast battery itself, so we have to have that backup battery option. So we're lucky to have that, but obviously it really works in tandem with the beast's main battery as well.
Wow, look at all that lightning going on there.
Impressive.
That is very impressive.
Other reinforcements on the car is that we have bigger tires to be able to handle the terrain or even the type of weather that we will be driving in sometimes. It's not built to be able to withstand high winds, so no, it is not a car that is meant to go inside of a tornado, nor is that our goal with the car itself. It's just to make sure that we can stay safe on any terrain that we find ourselves in. But we also do have some emergency lights on top of the vehicle in case it gets too dark. We'll throw those on, and especially when it gets really heavy rain and we need other cars to be able to see us better.
We are quite literally just following the storm.
Well, that's a little bit about the beast itself, what goes on in the car, the kind of equipment that we have that helps support us to do a successful chase and bring you that information live to keep you safe and informed during storms. But of course, we also love bringing it to your community for different events. So of course, if you're ever interested, be sure to reach out to us.
When severe storms roll in, they just don't rattle windows. Well, they can rattle nerves too. Andrew Stuskey looks into why severe weather can cause stress for both humans and animals and shares some practical ways to help everyone in your household stay calmer and safer when storms move in.
For many people in the Midwest, the sound of thunder, just a part of life. But for some, storms bring something deeper. Fear, memories, and anxiety that can linger long after the clouds have cleared. For meteorologist Morgan Nelson, that fear began when she was just 4 years old.
April 19th, 1996. I remember vividly coming back when the tornado hit Galva. I said, oh, you're on 3rd Avenue. That's pretty bad over there. Not realizing that our house was the one that was going to make global news.
The tornado ripped her family's home off its foundation. Nelson wasn't there when it happened, something she now realizes may have saved her life.
And it was scary. I probably wouldn't be here today if we were home because all the stuff in our house ended up in our basement. Our house tipped backwards. The tree back there kind of just held it in place, but it came off the foundation.
That moment sparked a lifelong fascination with weather. But it didn't erase the emotional impact. Even today, storms can still bring anxiety.
I know it was May 17th, And I had left work early actually to go spot for a storm that was supposed to be a pretty crazy day actually for us. And I set up outside of town. I usually would go by myself, no thoughts of anything being terrifying. And that day I got stuck in the RFD of that tornado that happened to hit, and it was a brief spin up. I briefly saw it on my app that I have for the radar. Everything around me was the color tan. I couldn't see anything. I was extremely terrified. I was radioing in back to the office and saying, "Hey guys, I can't see anything." It got really crazy really quick. I was scared, and they could tell in my voice. And I said, "I think we need to sound the sirens." And we went ahead and did that.
Nelson says preparation is one of the best ways to manage storm anxiety, knowing your plan and understanding what's happening outside.
A lot of times just doing stuff that calm you. So like sometimes listening to music is very calming for me. Going to the gym, getting a workout in, so you're taking your mind off stuff. But I always think it's good that you continue to be prepared and have a plan, especially if you have younger kids. Make sure you're going through that on a routine every once in a while that you're going through to make sure they know what the plan is if something severe happens and to take shelter.
Humans aren't the only ones that feel that stress. Anxiety can also develop in our pets too.
It is pretty common, and especially with us being in the Midwest with all the storms, as you know, that we get, the change in weather. I notice it in dogs and sometimes their behavior. They'll get anxious. They'll start to shake a little bit. They'll whine. They just kind of look like they're frenzied and they're trying to escape to get somewhere.
Experts say animals often sense storms before we do. Their hearing and awareness of pressure changes can make thunder especially overwhelming.
Think that they have wonderful hearing, much better than we do. They're very sensitive to changes in the environment. They see a lot more things. They feel a lot more things than we give them credit for. They hear that thunder probably before we even do.
If your pet struggles with storm anxiety, preparation can make a big difference.
Have a nice, comfortable place for them in your home, a place where they can retreat. Maybe place some nice, calming background music. Have the television on, a radio, or have some type of a white noise playing for them. Maybe you want to give them some toys, or they make those lick mats where you can put some peanut butter on that, or maybe even put some canned dog food.
And just like with people, your reaction matters too.
You need to be calm yourself because your pets can really pick up on your emotions and your behavior.
Whether it's people or pets, storms can bring anxiety. But experts say preparation, knowledge, and a plan can help turn fear into confidence when severe weather strikes. Andrew Stutzky, WQAD News 8.
Well, welcome back, everyone. We are in our little group chat, but by the video that we have in the background, we like to call it a little fire pit chat. How you guys like it?
It's nice.
I
It's warm
really
back
like
here.
it.
It's warm back here.
I
isn't
know. Look at the night sky too.
Kind of sets the environment and
It
everything.
does.
It really does. Indeed. We want to go ahead and talk about some of the topics that we've already talked about. And we're going to go and start with Morgan, of course, talking about the storm chasing, but more importantly, what you found out, and you just recently came out with a visit you had with some people, and it has to do with the sirens.
Yes.
And even today, we still have that discrepancy, and not just across the country, but locally as well.
Yeah, there can be a lot of confusion, I feel like, with sirens, and then not only that, with the your wireless emergency alerts on your phone. So when you're in a tornado warning, every tornado warning is going to have a siren, as well as activating the emergency or the wireless emergency alert on your phone. So again, that's the shocking sound when you're in with a lot of people. You hear that alarm go off that comes on your phone. So I made a little graphic because there is some discrepancies when it comes to severe thunderstorm warnings and how things are triggered. So we actually have 3 different categories when it comes to severe thunderstorm warnings and alerts. We have the base. So this is kind of the base profile for severe thunderstorms. You're either going to have 58-mile-per-hour winds or quarter-sized hail. And we will see this warned. Usually, though, you're really only going to see it either on radar on your phone, or you're going to be seeing it if you're watching us on TV. Considerable, that bumps us up to 70-mile-per-hour winds or hail that is at least or just under that 2-inch size, but golf ball sized hail. And again, these are going to be tags that are within the warnings. This was just implemented not too long ago, within the past few years from the National Weather Service. This is kind of to help break down and categorize exactly what we mean when we're talking about, the severity of these storms, because there's a lot of differences that thunderstorms can bring. And then the destructive tag is going to be 80-mile-per-hour winds or higher, and then hail that could be baseball sized. So when you're talking about how you're going to be warned, for base thunderstorms, most of the time, your outdoor sirens will not be activated, nor will the emergency wireless alert. But you get that tag on a thunderstorm warning with considerable, which means you are bumping that up to 70-mile-per-hour winds or golf ball sized hail. That's where you will see those outdoor sirens begin to go off. And again, outdoor sirens are just that. This is to warn people who are outside, to get you inside. And I also had an interesting question that people were like, why is it so quiet still when I'm hearing a siren? And that's what you want. You want it to be quiet outside when the sirens are going, because that means you have ample amount of time, hopefully within like 15 minutes of lead time is kind of the target zone, to be able to get you into a safe spot. And then, of course, the destructive tag, which is going to be some of the higher destruction coming from a severe thunderstorm. You're going to get both that outdoor siren, but you're also going to get your emergency wireless alert, because that's where you kind of maybe want to go into your safe places a little bit more, in your house, at least with the considerable. It's just at least get out from being outside. But destructive, you're starting to talk about winds that could be very close to like EF0, tornado winds, or EF1, and then obviously baseball-sized hail. You don't want to be outside in that.
No.
But even more so, that could be, damaging to windows. So you want to get away from windows, because we've definitely seen hail break windows, or even, and all that stuff, and especially with cars too. So that's kind of the differences when it comes to the severe thunderstorm warning and the alert system we use. I understand how this can get so confusing, because when you're watching us and you see all of these warnings on these maps, but it's like, I'm not getting a siren, or I'm not getting my phone to go off. And it's kind of like, why? That's why. We just have to have all these different categories. And I really like that the National Weather Service has done this. I mean, it breaks it down in even more criteria of like, severity, or even just, you should take every warning serious, but really how serious this could be as well. But like I said, with tornadoes, every time sirens will go off, and most of the time your phone will also go off with that wireless emergency.
Right, and we're in a situation right now where we literally do have a few towns that do not have sirens at all. That's a big concern, but at least we have other sources out there, resources, that you can get those warnings. But still, we're really concerned because most people do really rely on those sirens.
Yeah, again, like we've said, it's outdoors, so it's really important. But yeah, one of the most recent towns in our area is Clinton. It's a very expensive system, to replace, and that's what they were coming up with. The system was expiring, it's getting old, they're gonna have to replace it. And you're talking about tens to hundreds of thousands of dollars to try to replace that system. And yeah, technology is getting well enough for us to be able to get those warnings in an other scenario, but not every time someone's going to have a phone on them or be by a radio. That outdoor warning system is still just so important still. So interested to see how that's going to go for the area. I will definitely be interested to see the feedback, because I think this is just now the first year that they are no longer using it.
I think it's the first full year, yeah.
Yeah,
we
first
talked
full
about
year.
it last season ending.
So it'll be very interesting. We'll see.
Well, let's talk about a little bit of your chasing, okay? Yeah. What keeps you coming back, even though there's that level of risk that is involved? Because I think, and I get this a lot when I go to visits or run into people and such, and I think the rest of the team may agree with this as well, is you show so much composure in these situations. I mean, for us, we are in awe with some of the video and the camera shots that you guys send back, but you are so poised. So what makes you come back? And because every severe weather event is different.
It is, yeah, it very much is. And it keeps me learning. This is definitely a field where you're always going to learn something new, or you're gonna learn from experiences. And the more I chase, the more I learn, and that's also builds up that comfort level. But storms are chaotic. They do get very hard to chase, and that's why I know that, I almost sound like a hypocrite because I'm like, I'm going out in the storm, but I would never recommend anyone else to do that without having education, experience. I don't recommend going out alone. You know, there are people who go out alone. I would never be comfortable enough to go storm chasing by myself. It's always good to at least have somebody driving, because I am watching radar, I'm listening to you guys, I'm listening to National Weather Service, I am making sure that we have an exit strategy at all times as well, because, you know, in case anything does get dicey out there, I just want to make sure that we can act fast.
Right.
So it's a lot of moving parts, and it's a lot of brain power. I could not imagine doing all that on top of trying to drive myself.
That's right.
But yeah, there are people, and, you know, it's almost kind of like the same thing where sometimes, like with cars, you get the anxiety more so of other people on the road. I think that's where I also feel, I think, more anxiety. It's not really the storms, it's other people. There's a lot of chasers, and I've seen and heard stories.
Right.
You know, you just have to hope that and trust other people are being just as responsible.
Right.
Luckily, in our area, I don't really run into them much, and I also try to avoid those areas, because it can get very dangerous in those areas.
Always a challenge, that is for sure. You know, going back to making sure people understand what's going on weather-wise, especially when it comes to severe weather. Peter, you, of course, talked about a little about the SIG system. Have you seen a difference since that has been implemented?
Yeah, I mean, we saw these early March storms here, right? And I think having those conditional intensity groups showing you the potential for, say, those tornadoes that could have developed here is actually really helpful for the viewer. The best way I kind of like to explain it is think about baking, right?
Okay,
So we all like cookies, right? But think about the ingredients you have to make those cookies. Now, in certain atmospheric conditions allow for stronger tornadoes, or say bigger cookies to be baked. So depending on the ingredients or conditions we're seeing in the atmosphere, these conditional intensity groups allow us to kind of explain to the viewers, these are the ingredients we're looking at. This is how big or strong, say, these pieces of hail could get, or how strong the wind could be, or how strong the tornadoes could be. And I think it's a great way to kind of break it out beyond our categorical outlooks, which, you know, the typical 1 to 5 we talk about. That just shows you coverage, but this shows you the intensity. And being able to understand the intensity and that elevated potential threat, I think, is really helpful to explaining that to the viewer.
It's not just if, you know, storms are possible.
Yes.
It means that we have storms, and we're just explaining about the intensity, how bad these storms are actually going to be for certain areas that may be in the path.
Yeah, and then I think the way we're going to explain it is going to be really helpful. They're going to have different colorings than we've been dealing with before previously, right, than our typical category outlooks. So that's going to be really helpful. And again, just understanding intensity, because before we really never had that. We could talk about what we're seeing on raw data, but to get it from the best of the best, of course, at the Storm Prediction Center and kind of see what they're looking at and observing, this will really help us explain that to you guys so you can be prepared and know what plans of action you might need to take if that scenario does play out for your hometown.
Right, simpler the better.
Exactly.
That's for sure. You know, one of the things that if you have pets out there, or even yourselves too, that, you know, when storms come, of course, when there's lightning, there's thunder, and it can startle just about anyone. But storm anxiety, Andrew, that has been really a big challenge, because most of us here are pet owners. That could be really a struggle. You know, how do you actually, you know, get your pet in a controlled state? I mean, it all depends. Why is it that some have this storm anxiety and others do not?
Yeah, it's really fascinating when you dive in, not just to the human form of anxiety, but pet form of anxiety. And it can get really bad. I mean, I have a dog that has storm anxiety, you know, sensing the pressure changes, the noise, the flashing of the lightning. You know, he's smart enough to go to the bathtub, thank goodness. But the poor guy, you know, shaking and trembling. And, you know, you think about how sensitive we are as humans. Well, multiply that by about 100 when it comes to our pets. They are extremely sensitive to these kind of things. Some are lucky enough, you know, maybe you have a pet that doesn't experience storm anxiety. Maybe they're bulletproof, they can take on anything, but others, you know, a little bit more sensitive to that. And there's a lot of different things I found out in doing this story that you can do. Obviously, there's medication. There's alternative medicines you can do. But there's a whole bunch of simple things you can do, too. And James, you always had a good example. You play Elton John.
Well, I don't know what it is with Elton John, but yeah, they are almost
so
common
funny.
as can be. Yeah, absolutely. Of course, you get a little peanut butter in it. It makes sense. But Elton John, they begin to come and would get loud enough, then they don't hear any of that. But, you know, that's really the only option that we have in these situations.
And that's the thing, is there's no one size fits all.
Right.
It's not a matter of going out and getting a special jacket
or going straight to the medication. It really is kind of doing a deeper dive and figuring out what your pet needs to kind of cope with these different kinds of situations. And humans are the same. We're a little more complicated though, because of course we have all these other emotions that our animals don't have. And that's what was fascinating talking about the human side of storm anxiety, is especially how our social landscape has changed in the last decade because of social media. We all have cell phones. So it used to be, you know, when we didn't have this technology, if there was a bad storm, you usually didn't see all the damage until maybe a few days after. But now you're seeing the damage immediately. And in most cases, especially with live streaming, you're seeing the damage as it's happening, and you're seeing the immediate aftermath. And I think that has really riled up a lot more sensitivity when it comes to how people manage storm anxiety. It's really made it a lot more difficult for them to kind of process this so soon after the fact that it's happened.
Right. I even heard reports too that, for example, the Kankakee tornado that took place, it was so well defined, and you know, when they threw the track out going in Indiana, people were really concerned because, as you mentioned, it's pretty much like nowcasting. Everything's happening now. You're seeing what's happening. You're seeing the destruction, and you know that it's going to be holding its own going into the next state. And that was a concern about the fear that was really building, even though you are, you know, you're getting this information well in advance. That's the thing.
It's almost like ignorance is bliss, really, with
Right.
years ago. Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, and talking to someone, actually a meteorologist who has storm anxiety, how they were able to cope with that, how they were able to deal with that, and just making sure that you're grounded in reality and you're not losing focus of, okay, these are the other alternative outcomes that could possibly come
Yeah, it's like you're
from a severe storm.
you
It's not
focus
always
on
death
that
and
one.
destruction.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's the most important thing is simply planning and preparing.
Yes.
Just be in your safe place. That's the best place you can be. And we're all going to get through this kind of thing. Because we're in the same situation. You know, we're always thinking about viewers out there. So, as long as we, you know, take the right steps, you're going to be just fine.
Yeah, and that's honestly the best thing, and that's why we do these extra live streams on the A+ app when it comes to severe weather days. We want to get you as much information as possible, so you know down to the littlest detail on what's coming your way, and knowing all of that, you're going to be able to plan and prepare perfectly for it.
Right.
And you're going to execute that plan perfectly when the time comes.
Right, yeah. Well, let's do this, guys, because, you know, we're now getting in those nice warm days. Things are starting to look nice and green out there. And, of course, one of the missions that usually happens is going out there and cutting that darn grass.
Oh, yeah.
But we want to make it a little easier out there because what we have done here in our specials here in the past here at WQAD is giving away a nice little piece of equipment to make your spring and summer outdoor recreation a little bit easier. And I thought it'd be appropriate that Morgan be the one to explain what our giveaway is here, because if you haven't heard, folks, I mean,
The Snow Queen.
the Snow Queen, we like that. Yeah, well, of course, she is the back-to-back winner of our snowfall prediction contest. We're still trying to figure out how she was able to come up with these.
It was a guess. It was the biggest guess ever.
Guess, we don't guess. Educated guess.
In intuition.
Intuition.
Let's say that.
Very
Gut
good.
feeling.
Yeah.
Well, why don't you go and tell everyone
All
about
right.
this wonderful lawnmower giveaway?
Oh, and it looks great. I mean, this is going to help somebody out great this season. So you can win this lawnmower. It's a 22-inch recycler self-propelled gas Toro lawnmower.
That's a lot to say.
It's a mouthful. Sponsored by B&B Equipment in Geneseo, Illinois. One winner will be selected. You just have to go to WQAD.com and head to the contest and deals page. Then on the form, enter the code word Thunder.
I love that.
The deadline to enter is April 12th.
Nice.
Very cool.
That looks so nice,
Oh,
too.
it looks
It's got a little
fantastic.
bag with it as
I
well.
was going to say, the bag looks nice.
I know. I was like, I saw the title of that lawnmower. I was like, oh, we went no joke.
No, this is no joke whatsoever.
Yeah.
Self-propelled and everything.
Yeah.
And if
Are we
anyone-
allowed to enter? Huh? Are we allowed to enter?
we may have to
We
work
can't.
on
We
that.
can't.
I don't know.
But it sounds
Can I be like an anonymous, like an alias?
Oh, that's it. Mickey Mouse. Yes, he lives at WQAD. Well, just good luck, everyone out there, when it comes to this lawnmower giveaway. Of course, can never go wrong with the equipment over at B&B, that's for sure. I think I just did a free promo with them. Free advertisement. Well, that's pretty much it when it comes to our severe weather special. I want to thank Andrew, Morgan, and Peter for being involved in this. Of course, it was a good time, especially with our beautiful little fire pit chat.
I love it.
Doesn't that just wonderful?
Love it.
Plenty more than the Zahara household in the backyard, that's for sure. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. And please remember, here at Storm Track 8, it's not just being first, it's being accurate. Take care, everyone.